What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Taking a Vacation to Cleveland. As always, I am your host, Zach Cronin, and today we're going to be talking about the Cleveland Cavaliers. You may or may not know this, but the Cavaliers are having a historic season. If you were unaware, it's probably because the national media has hardly talked about it. But if you are aware, you're already probably a fan of the Cavs. Usually, when you see a video that has a title of something like, we need to talk about X, Y, or Z, it's something negative. This is not the case. We just need to have a conversation about the Cleveland Cavaliers because of just how great they are. It's a shame that the Cavs this season aren't a bigger story. They're 30-4 through their first 34 games, which is a pace that, if they continue, will see them end the season with 72 wins. I don't know about you, but that seems like kind of a big deal. On top of that, the Cavs are the second highest scoring team of the three-point era behind this year's Memphis Grizzlies, actually, and the fifth most efficient offense of all time. Kenny Atkinson's squad boasts the fifth highest net rating of all time. Lastly, Cleveland is quite literally the most accurate shooting team that the NBA has ever seen, as they currently hold the records for effective field goal and true shooting percentage. An offensive explosion of this degree sounds like it would necessitate just a little bit of coverage, but the national media seems quite apathetic towards Cleveland. Whenever they do come up, it's always about their relation to the Boston Celtics and what is the likelihood that Cleveland would be able to take down the Celtics in a best of seven series. I do feel that that is a valid conversation to have, but not right now. I think it really undersells the quality of basketball the Cavs are playing right now. I know for a fact that part of this neglect is Cleveland being a small to medium market team. Franchises outside of the major television networks of New York, Miami, and LA are constantly fighting for coverage. What also hampers the Cavs is that they don't have a MVP caliber player putting up remarkable numbers. They don't have a Shea Gilgeous Alexander. They don't have a Giannis Antetokounmpo. Cleveland's best player is Donovan Mitchell, and while he is an undeniably brilliant player, his numbers are not eye-catching, especially when you consider the tier of player that he's in. Quality basketball is worth talking about in whatever way that it presents itself. Admittedly, I don't give a shit about Cleveland's roster construction. I mean, I do, but not in the sense that them not having an icon of the sport is detrimental or should be detrimental. The fans at least don't see it that way. The first round of All-Star voting just returned, and Mitchell is the second leading guard in the Eastern Conference behind only LaMelo Ball, and this is in spite of him posting only averages of like 24 points, 4.5 rebounds, 5 assists. Darius Garland has been tremendous for this team as well, averaging a little more than 20 points per game and just shy of 7 assists. We could also talk about Jared Allen and Evan Mobley, both of whom have grown into remarkable pieces for not only Cleveland's defense, but also the dynamic that they bring to their offense. We could talk for hours about just all of the individual components on this roster. You have Karis LeVert, who is a much improved shooter. You have Ty Jerome, who is emerging as just a very reliable rotation player. This team is just phenomenal, and everyone fits so perfectly together. It's this mix of talent and chemistry that has propelled Cleveland to this electric start where they have not only dominated lesser opponents, but they've also dominated the higher quality opponents that they've seen. At the time of this recording, Cleveland is 13-4 against teams with winning records. Strangely enough, two of those losses have come to the Atlanta Hawks, which is strange for not only Cleveland losing to them, but this is also the same Hawks team that has dropped multiple games to the Washington Wizards. More importantly, if you consider this important, Cleveland has split their season series with Boston thus far. The Celtics are still my favorite to come out of the Eastern Conference, but compared to where they started the season, Cleveland is an exponentially larger threat. Although, if it were to come down to a 7 game series, I do give a slight edge to Boston only because I feel that they have a bit more well-rounded defense. For as terrific as the Cavs are offensively, they do have a sizable hole on the other end of the floor, and it's their ability to defend On the perimeter, Cleveland's opponents are making about 13 threes per game at a rate of just above 36%. That mark ranking 20th in the NBA. Compared to Boston and Oklahoma City, Cleveland trails in perimeter defense by a considerable margin. In sticking with three-point percentage, allowed the Celtics have the ninth best opponent percentage, and Oklahoma City leads in that category. This deficiency stems from Cleveland's individual defensive potential from their guards and wings. They simply do not have the talent on that end to compete with Oklahoma City and Boston. However, there is a workaround to this one that Kenny Atkinson has implemented quite successfully, and it's that they're just going to simply play more aggressive on the perimeter and chase guys off the three-point line, funneling them into Mobley, Allen. That strategy has been quite effective. Thus far, Cleveland is allowing their opponents to shoot just 63% on shots inside of 3 feet, which is the lowest mark in the league. Additionally, the Cavs are forcing upwards of 15 turnovers and collecting 9 steals on a nightly basis, both of which are good enough to land inside the top 8. I mentioned it before, but Cleveland prioritizes getting guys off of the three-point line, and that is also objectively a success. Despite having one of the fastest paces in the entire league, Cleveland is allowing just 36 three-point attempts per game. Despite such a prolific offense and a stifling defense, I've seen an ample amount of skepticism online about Cleveland's ability to perform in the postseason. I'm not exactly surprised by this, given how spectacularly they failed in each of the last 2 playoffs. But if you allow me to just go based on vibes for a second, they just look and feel different this season. It's a little weird considering how this roster is largely unchanged. Something like 80% of their minutes are coming from returning players, but chemistry undeniably plays a role in sustained success. And that's pertinent to the Cavs, especially among their core group of players. Now, if we could just go back to the numbers for a second, I mentioned all of those offensive metrics earlier because not only are they historic, but they are significantly better than Cleveland's last 2 campaigns. A large reason as to why they just look and feel different is because they are objectively a different team offensively, and they're a different team for the better. This powerhouse backcourt of Mitchell and Garland, combined with Mobley being able to space the floor as a stretch 5 and Allen being a lob threat, has propelled this team to new heights, into the stratosphere. I do attribute most of this improvement to Darius Garland. He was always going to be the reason why Cleveland either overachieved or underachieved. We know we're going to get outstanding production from Donovan Mitchell. We know that Jared Allen is going to give you 13, 14, 15 points per game, but Darius Garland had the potential to be such an electric scorer, and it's not that he never lived up to it. It's just that really I don't want this his efficiency kind of lagged behind what we thought it could have been. I say this because Darius Garland has always had modest shooting splits. He hovered around 45% for most of his career. This season, however, his overall field goal percentage is at just about 50. At the time of this recording, it's exactly 49.3. Most of this improvement has come from him being more accurate on twos. He's shooting like 55% on twos, and his game has expanded as well. He's a much more efficient mid-range shooter. He's just more comfortable getting to his spots. His craftiness has reached a new level. He's still as shifty as ever. Additionally, he's getting higher quality looks because the supporting cast has elevated their level of play, which tracks back to Garland because he is a terrific playmaker. Of all the things that I've been wrong about to start this season, the Cavaliers are near the top. Heading into this year, I thought that the 3 best teams in the Eastern Conference would be Boston, New York, and Philadelphia. Not necessarily in that order, but those 3, at least on paper, were just simply better than everyone else. I saw the Cavaliers as that second-tier team with Milwaukee, Orlando, and I was just clearly wrong about that. I didn't think that Cleveland would have the potential to make a deep playoff run. I didn't think that the roster was good enough to compete with a revamped New York Knicks team, to compete with a big three of Joel Embiid, Paul George, and Tyrese Maxey, which of course has looked like a disaster thus far. And then still Boston. Again, I still think Boston is the best team in the East, but Cleveland matches up quite well with them. If they do find themselves meeting in the conference finals, I think it would be a very bloody 7-game series. Things are totally different now. Cleveland is, in terms of winning, the best team in the NBA, but it goes beyond that. They have everything that you want from a championship contender. They have a undeniable star player in Donovan Mitchell. They have a tremendous supporting cast who all occupy different roles and occupy those roles successfully. They have a highly efficient offense. They have a highly efficient defense as well. Even though I highlighted their lack of ability to defend the perimeter, they're still like 8th overall in defensive rating. We have the chemistry as well, which I talked about. And Kenny Atkinson just looks tremendous. That first stint in Brooklyn, all those years as an assistant, like it primed him for this moment. And he's just maximizing the talents of all of these players. I can't definitively say that Cleveland is going to win an NBA championship. I can't say that about any team thus far, but they deserve their respect. They deserve to be in that conversation. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and close this video out. Thank you guys so very much for coming to hang out with me today. Everything that I'm associated with is down in the description box below. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Subscribe to the channel. Leave a like on this video. Drop a comment as well. It really helps out with the algorithm. If you do any of those 3 things, you will become my new favorite person. And with that, I will see y'all in the next one.